Assalamu alaikum. In this video, today we will discuss the renin-angiotensin mechanism. To control the blood pressure, we have different mechanisms. Among them, I have discussed many of these processes, mechanisms, but among the rapid pressure control, we have the hormonal mechanisms involving epinephrine and norepinephrine secreted by the sympathetic nerve endings, which cause the vasoconstriction to increase the heart rate and to increase the blood pressure. Vasopressin, the other name, that is the antidiuretic hormone or ADH, it is also going to increase the vasoconstriction and in this way causing the increase in the blood pressure. And the next is the renin-angiotensin aldosterone mechanism. And this is the thing which we are going to discuss today in detail. This mechanism is purely related to the kidney. The renin which is secreted, actually it is present in inactive form in the kidney, that is the prorenin, and this inactive form is present in the juxtaglomerular cells. What are the juxtaglomerular cells? That will be discussed somewhat later, but you must here focus the renin which is present in inactive form. Now it is become activated when there is decrease in the blood pressure. It acts on a globulin angiotensinogen and releases the next product, that is the angiotensin 1. In the lungs, we have the angiotensin converting enzyme which converts this angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2. While discussing the respiratory unit, I have told you some of the non-respiratory function of the lungs, and among these functions, one of that is conversion of angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2. This whole chain is related to the main organ which is concerned with this mechanism, that is the kidney. And story begins from the decrease in the blood pressure and release of the renin. Now we have the angiotensin 2. It causes vasoconstriction and also decreased secretion of salt and water from the kidney. I already told you that this thing, that is the blood pressure, has some determinants. Among that we have the salt balance, water balance, the pressure, either the and the condition of the blood vessels, they are vasoconstricted, there is vasoconstriction or the vasodilatation. What is the condition of the blood vessels? All these factors, they are going to determine the blood pressure in the end. If one of these that is changed, either the sodium concentration in the extracellular compartment or the fluid compartment that is changed, volume of the fluid compartment that is changed, that is ultimately going to affect the blood pressure. Either they are going to increase or decrease. In our body, we have certain mechanisms involving this renin-angiotensin mechanism. The role of the kidney is not only important for the increase in when there is decrease in the blood pressure, the kidney is going to help to increase it. If there is increase in the blood pressure, the kidney plays a very important role to decrease it. So to maintain its optimum range of the blood pressure, the kidney is very much helpful. Through the renin and angiotensin mechanism, if there is decrease in the blood pressure, the kidney is going to cause through the renin and angiotensin mechanism vasoconstriction and also decrease in the salt and water excretion. This salt and water excretion, it is not only because of the release of the angiotensin 2, but also it is controlled by the aldosterone, one another hormone, and we will discuss it also in following slides. So the angiotensin 2 causes kidneys to retain salt and water by constriction of the renal arterioles. And what type? We have the renal arterioles, afferent and efferent. But here the vasoconstriction is caused by the release of the angiotensin 2 in the efferent renal arteriole. Thus, blood flow that slows through the capillaries, pressure is reduced in renal peritubular capillaries, and fluid is reabsorbed more and more. If you are going to constrict the outlet, as I am saying, constriction of the efferent arteriole, so you are going to constrict the outlet, the blood will stay there for longer time and there will be increase in the fluid reabsorption. It has direct action on the tubular cells to increase salt and water reabsorption and also stimulates the aldosterone secretion. This is the indirect way. And through the release of the aldosterone by the adrenal cortex, it is going to manage the sodium concentration. Aldosterone is the very specific hormone to control these elements like sodium, and it is secreted by the adrenal cortex, and it is going to control the sodium concentration in the extracellular compartment. If there is increase, it is going to decrease the sodium retention, and if there is decrease in the sodium concentration, it is going to retain the sodium concentration. So by the end result of the angiotensin 2, directly it is going to increase the salt and water reabsorption, and indirectly it stimulates the aldosterone, which further retain the sodium. And as the solute is retained, it is followed by the excessive reabsorption of the solvent, so that the fluid is also retained. This mechanism helps to keep the blood pressure near normal despite a large variation in salt and water intake. This sentence shows how this strong mechanism is there. So the components of the renin-angiotensin mechanism is, or the mechanism, you can show it through a sketch, and you have to draw it in your sketchbook as well. So story begins from the decrease in the arterial pressure. When the blood goes to the kidney, this takes some time. So I am saying again and again, this mechanism is involved in the long-term control of the blood pressure, not the rapid control. It cannot take place at once, because the blood with the high or low blood pressure going to the kidney, that takes some time to stimulate its mechanism. If there is decrease in the arterial pressure, it goes to the kidney and stimulates the renin secretion. Angiotensinogen that is coming from the liver under the renin, which is acting as an enzyme, angiotensin 1 is formed from the angiotensinogen. Now from the enzyme, very much specific to convert it into 1 into 2, that is present in the lung, so that the angiotensin 1 is converted into the angiotensin 2 under the effect of ACE. Now this angiotensin 2 that is soon destroyed by its specific enzyme, but before its destruction or before it become inactivated, it performs its important function. On one hand, it is going to cause the vasoconstriction, and on the other hand, it is causing the renal retention of the salt and water. Both effects combine so that now the arterial pressure increases. The condition that is reversed now. One more way to explain all these mechanisms, and in this diagram I am going to show the involvement of the liver and the lungs. Now through this picture you must remember, and it will become very much easy to remember how many organs they are involved in the angiotensin mechanism and this type of the control of the blood pressure, so that there is low and I will show further I will show you the further more detail of these mechanism, how the sympathetic activity is involved and all this, but this is a very simple sketch to show the involvement of the liver and lungs also. Before going to further detail, I would like to explain what is the juxtaglomerular apparatus, or what are the juxtaglomerular cells, where they are present and how they are acting, because this is the base of the renin-angiotensin mechanism. You can see this is the whole picture of the nephron, glomerulus, proximal convoluted tubule, then loop of Henle. This is the ascending part of the loop of Henle. Now the distal convoluted tubule and collecting tubule. The initial part of the distal convoluted tubule that has a very specific structure which is called the macular densa. In that, now for that you must remember 2-3 points. Number 1 point, that is this specific part which contains the macular densa that is very much close to the glomerulus, Bowman's capsule of the nephron. So you can see this one. Actually they are present in this form. In the diagram in the book we see that this is the here the Bowman's capsule that is present, and followed by all these things, and they say, but that is for just study purpose. The actual picture of the nephron, that is this one, so that the initial part of the distal convoluted tubule, it is very much closer, or it is attached to the glomerulus in this way. This part, that is the initial part of the distal convoluted tubule, have a very specific structure named as macular densa. These are specialized sodium sensors. These are the specialized cells. They have the sodium sensor. So this point is very much close to the glomerulus, or in association exists in association with the glomerulus. Number 1 thing. Secondly, these are the specific cells which have the sodium sensor. Whenever there is decrease in the sodium concentration, at once they are stimulated, and they manage accordingly whole of the mechanism. So what happens, that blood is circulating here in the glomerulus, okay, then urine is formed, and it is coming here inside the nephron, inside the tubule, this one, this. When it reaches here, as there is sodium sensor, they are present here at this site, they at once judge the sodium concentration. If it is less than normal, they are stimulated. What they are going to perform? They are going to manage these afferent and efferent arterioles. In close association of these afferent and efferent arterioles, again we have the specialized cells, which are the granular cells, so that they are also participating in the renin-angiotensin mechanism, and they are going to release the renin. Once the macula densa is stimulated, it is going to cause the vasoconstriction of the efferent arteriole, while the afferent arteriole vasodilatation, opposite effect take place. More and more blood come here in the glomerulus, so that more and more goes to the sodium is going through this part, and they are more and more stimulated, so that these cells, they are going to release the renin. Renin, now it acts on the angiotensinogen and convert it into angiotensin 1. Then from the lungs, the 1 is converted with the help of the enzyme present in the lung. 1 is converted into 2, and the further actions, they are carried out through the angiotensin 2. So this is the picture where we can have the juxtaglomerular apparatus. This is one more diagram, and you can see the macular densa. This is the part which I have shown you here in this diagram. This one, initial part of the distal convoluted tubule. This is one more sketch diagram to show the juxtaglomerular apparatus, and these are the specific cells which are sodium sensor. They are going to sense the sodium concentration, and from that they are going to manage the vasoconstriction, either the afferent or efferent. What should be called? What should they do? In response to decrease in the blood pressure, they are causing the vasoconstriction in the efferent arteriole, and these are the specialized cells which are very much close to the arteriole, afferent or efferent. The juxtaglomerular cells going to produce the renin. Okay, this is the whole thing. This part is going to manage sodium concentration, causing the vasoconstriction here, and these cells, they are going to manage the release of the renin. So with this apparatus, not only the renin is released, vasoconstriction is caused, but also there is sodium retention, water retention. All these things, they are carried out through this whole apparatus, juxtaglomerular apparatus. This is the sketch that is very much important, and you have to draw all these diagrams which I have shown here. This one. This is your assignment for the sketchbook. You must draw all these. Okay? And this sketch, in which it is shown that how the decrease in the arterial pressure, that is managed. What is the role of the kidney to manage this one? Involving the renin-angiotensin mechanism, involving the vasoconstriction of the efferent arteriole. So this is the way decrease in the macular densa sodium chloride concentration. When there is decrease in the arterial pressure, the blood coming to the glomerulus that have the less pressure. Decrease in the GFR, that is the glomerular filtration rate. At this point, initial point of the distal convoluted tubule, decrease in the sodium concentration. At once, the release of the renin take place and angiotensin 2, which causes the efferent arterial resistance, increase in the efferent arterial concentration, and the story is reversed here. And also the other effect, that is the decrease resistance of the afferent arteriole. Through this graph, I am going to show you what is the importance of the renin-angiotensin mechanism. You can see if there is, God forbid, if there is hemorrhage, decrease in the blood pressure, how it is going to be managed through the renin-angiotensin mechanism. If it is activated, you can have this type of the graph. Soon the blood pressure that is going to be managed, but without that one, you can see what is the condition. So through this graph, you can come to know the importance of the renin-angiotensin mechanism. Again, some details of the angiotensin 2 function, how it is going to control the salt and water retention. It acts directly on the kidney to cause the salt and water retention. I have told you this one. And the indirect through the release of the aldosterone, which is a specific hormone to control the secretion or to control the level of the sodium in our body. So it is also going to secrete the aldosterone, which is ultimately causing the salt and water retention. This diagram is going to show you the function or the effects of the angiotensin 2, short term and the long term. It is over the circulatory system and at the tissue level. So soon at the angiotensin 2 that is going to rapidly conserve the sodium and water, while the aldosterone secretion, it is also causing the vasoconstriction and have the positive chronotropic effect over the heart. At the tissue level, the long-term effects, that is the intraglomerular hypertension, you can see the vasoconstriction here, that is the internal bore that is now lesser than this one, showing the vasoconstriction. The vascular hypertrophy can also take place in the long-term effects. The same I have told you already, almost all the effects. Sympathetic stimulation also to increase one more, this one. That is whenever there is now this is the opposite effect of the previous which we have discussed. Number one thing, so you must keep it separate and not mix with the first one. As you I highlight this one, that is the the initial is that is increase in the salt intake and increase in the arterial pressure. Previously we were discussing the decrease in the arterial pressure, so and the decrease in the sodium, so that in the end we were retaining the sodium and water, and in the end the blood pressure increases. But here the initial, that is there is increase in the arterial pressure, increase in the salt intake. So how it is managed, what is the control of the kidney? Now again, when this condition, when the increased amount of the salt reaches to the macula densa, which are the sensors, sodium sensors, so again they judge the concentration of the sodium. Now they judge that it is much more increased, so they inhibit the renin secretion. Okay, decrease renin and angiotensin, they are macular densa, they are inhibiting the whole mechanism. They are inhibiting the release of the renin. Obviously, once the renin is not secreted, the further mechanism cannot take place. So, the renin, that is decrease in renal retention of salt and water, because this is carried out through the angiotensin 2. Once the renin-angiotensin mechanism is not activated, obviously there is decrease in the renal retention of the salt and water. As they are not retained in our body, they are excreted more and more from our body, so that the return of the extracellular volume almost to the normal and the arterial pressure almost to the normal. So they are not retained, they are excreted. The increased salt intake, that is balanced. Now we have increased salt excretion also. Okay, so this condition is opposite to the previous which we have discussed. Previously we have discussed the renin-angiotensin mechanism through which the blood pressure is increased, and because of the decrease in the salt also, they are going to retain that one. But this is the opposite, to show you that in both conditions, either blood pressure increases or decreases, the kidney is going to play a very, very important role, as it is controlling not only the fluid balance but also the salt intake and output, also the sodium concentration, sodium extracellular compartment, the concentration in the extracellular compartment, fluid compartment, all they are also managed through the kidney. So in both of the condition, the kidney has very important role. This is further detail to show you the involvement of the sympathetic tone, how it is activated once there is blood volume or pressure decreases. Again, the role of the baroreceptor reflex. All these mechanisms, they are interconnected with each other. Nothing is going independently. They are connected with each other. On the whole, when there is decrease in the blood volume or either the blood pressure in the body, on the whole of the body mechanisms, they are activated. And it also involves this, that is the thirst center, that is the involvement of the ADH, that is the involvement of the epinephrine and norepinephrine, adrenaline or noradrenaline, okay, to cause the increase in the total peripheral resistance. So the end result, you must draw all these mechanisms, number one thing and this one, because this is to show the whole of the mechanism which are going to be activated through the change in the blood pressure. It is going to show not only the vascular smooth muscle, peripheral, what is the peripheral resistance and how it is going increase or decrease, vasoconstriction or vasodilation, and if there is vasoconstriction, how it takes place because of the release of the epinephrine through the sympathetic nerve endings. Then the involvement of the brain and the hypothalamus, through which hypothalamus is going to stimulate the posterior pituitary, which is going to release the ADH or the vasopressin or the antidiuretic hormone. All they are going side by side. They are helpful to manage the blood pressure control. And also near to that, we have specific nuclei and specific thirst center, which is stimulated, and they are receiving the stimuli through the baroreceptors, through the chemoreceptors. They are stimulating these cells or these nuclei, and because of that the thirst center is also stimulated, and you search water and drink water more and more to compensate it. And through the adrenal cortex, Again the hypothalamus is involved, then in response to that one, adrenal cortex is going to secrete the aldosterone. As I have told you, this is through the angiotensin mechanism also, and from adrenal cortex directly also. Aldosterone secretion take place, and all these effects combine. What is the end result? Total peripheral resistance increase, vasoconstriction is there, renal reabsorption of sodium is there, renal reabsorption of water is there, so that increase in the blood volume and increase in the blood pressure. So with that, we complete the involvement of the renin-angiotensin mechanism and involvement of the kidney, how it is going to manage the blood pressure, very, very important role. So the further discussion will be in next video. Up to that, thank you and Allah Hafiz.